A plant can look dead long before it is truly gone. The leaves turn pale, the stems lean to one side, flowers drop before they become fruit, and at that moment, most people assume the story is over. They pull the plant from the soil, clear the space, and tell themselves it was simply too weak to survive. But in many cases, that plant is not dead. It is hungry. Not hungry in a general way, but missing one or two key nutrients at the exact moment it needs them most. A tomato plant may be short on potassium just when it is trying to set fruit. A pepper plant may be growing in soil where the living microbes have gone quiet. A zucchini may be sitting in a bed that looks rich on the surface, but no longer has enough available nitrogen to support new growth. And here is the part that changes everything. Some of the fastest plant rescue treatments are not found in shiny bags at the garden center. They are already in the kitchen, in the compost bowl, or in the corner of the shed. Onion skins, rice water, overripe vegetables, banana peels, used coffee grounds, eggshells, aged manure. These are the things modern households often call waste. But to soil, they are raw materials. To a struggling plant, they can become food, protection, and a second chance. The key is not simply throwing scraps onto the ground and hoping they break down someday. That can take weeks or months. A collapsing plant does not always have that much time. The real secret is turning those materials into liquid form. When nutrients are extracted into water, diluted correctly, and poured into the root zone, the plant does not have to wait for slow decomposition. The minerals are already moving. The microbes are already active. The soil begins to respond almost immediately. In this video, we will look at 5 natural liquid fertilizers that can help revive weak, yellowing, or tired plants. Each one works in a different way. Some feed the plant directly. Some feed the soil life around the roots. Some provide a broad range of minerals when the plant is missing more than one thing at once. But each method has one important rule. Used correctly, it can help a plant recover. Used too strong, too fresh, or in the wrong way, it can do more harm than good. So before reaching for the shovel, it is worth understanding what the plant may actually be asking for. Because sometimes the cure is not in a store. Sometimes, it is already sitting in the trash can. Long before synthetic fertilizer became common, nearly every farm relied on the same basic idea. Feed the soil with what animals had already returned to the land. It was not glamorous. It did not come in bright packaging. It did not promise miracle growth in bold letters. But for centuries, composted manure helped gardens stay productive because it provided more than just nutrients. It carried organic matter, minerals, and living biology back into the soil. One of the oldest liquid versions of this method is often called manure tea. Think of it as a giant tea bag for the garden. The idea is simple. A small amount of aged, well-rotted manure is placed inside a porous bag, then soaked in water for several days. As it sits, valuable nutrients move from the manure into the water. The solid material stays trapped in the bag, while the liquid becomes a gentle fertilizer that can be poured around the root zone of weak or hungry plants. This method is especially useful when a plant needs support but the soil cannot break down dry amendments fast enough. A struggling tomato, pepper, cucumber, or squash plant may not have weeks to wait. It may need available nutrients now. That is where properly diluted manure tea can help. But there is one rule that matters more than anything else. The manure must be aged. Fresh manure is not a shortcut. It can contain too much ammonia, too much salt, weed seeds, and harmful pathogens if it is applied too strong or too early. It can burn tender roots instead of feeding them. For food gardens, safety matters even more, especially around leafy greens, herbs, and vegetables eaten raw. That is why the safest approach is to use manure that has already been composted or aged until it is dark, crumbly, and no longer sharp-smelling. In many traditional systems, manure is left to mature for months before it ever touches a vegetable bed. Once the material is safe and aged, the setup is very basic. A shovel of aged cow, chicken, rabbit, or composted animal manure goes into an old cotton pillowcase, burlap sack, or mesh bag. The bag is tied shut and placed inside a bucket of water. Over the next 3 to 5 days, the water slowly draws out nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, magnesium, and trace minerals. Different manures have different strengths. Aged chicken manure is usually the most powerful. It tends to be rich in nitrogen and phosphorus, which makes it helpful for plants that are pale, slow-growing, or struggling to produce flowers. But because it is strong, it must be diluted carefully. Cow manure is usually gentler and more balanced. It is not as intense as chicken manure, but it is excellent for supporting soil structure and long-term fertility. It is the kind of input that slowly improves the foundation beneath the plant. Rabbit manure is often considered one of the mildest options. Compared with many other manures, it is less likely to burn roots when properly handled. And a tea made from aged rabbit manure can be useful for younger plants that need a softer boost. After soaking, the liquid should not be used straight from the bucket. That is one of the biggest mistakes people make. The finished tea should be diluted until it looks like weak iced tea. A safe starting point is about 1 part manure tea to 10 parts clean water. For sensitive seedlings or plants already stressed by heat, even weaker is better. This diluted liquid is poured directly onto the soil or on the base of the plant, not on the leaves, not across edible greens, not in the middle of the day when heat can make stress worse. The best time to apply it is early morning or late afternoon, when the soil is cooler and the roots can absorb moisture more steadily. In hot weather, this timing matters. Nutrients and moisture stay available longer, and the plant has a better chance to recover overnight. Used correctly, manure tea can support plants that look tired, pale, or slow. It gives them a broad nutrient boost while also adding some of the biological richness that synthetic fertilizer does not provide. But it should never be treated like a magic potion. More is not better. A plant only needs a gentle push. Too much nitrogen can create weak, leafy growth with fewer fruits. Too much strength can damage roots. And unsafe manure can create problems no gardener wants near food crops. So the principle is simple. Use aged material, keep it diluted, apply it to the soil, give the plant time to respond. This old method works because it does not just feed the plant for a moment, it supports the living system around the roots. And once that system begins to wake up, a plant that looked finished can sometimes find the strength to grow again. Some natural fertilizers feed the plant directly. Fermented rice water works differently. It feeds the invisible life around the roots. Every time rice is rinsed before cooking, the water turns cloudy. Most people pour it straight down the drain without thinking twice. But that cloudy liquid contains starches, small amounts of minerals, and traces of nutrients that soil microbes can use as food. Fresh rice water is mildly helpful. It can add a little nutrition to the soil and provide a gentle boost to microbial activity. But fresh rice water is not the real secret. The real transformation begins when that water is allowed to ferment. When rice water sits in a covered jar at room temperature for several days, naturally occurring bacteria and wild yeasts begin to multiply. The liquid changes. It may develop a slightly sour smell, similar to a mild sourdough starter. That smell is not a sign that it has failed. It is the sign that life has started to bloom inside the jar. And that is exactly why this method matters. A tired plant is not always suffering because there is no food in the soil. Sometimes the soil has nutrients, but the biological system that helps unlock them has become weak. Dryness, overuse of chemical fertilizers, compacted soil, poor drainage, and repeated cropping can all reduce microbial activity. When the soil life goes quiet, roots have a harder time accessing what they need. Fermented rice water helps by waking up that underground system. The starches in the rice water act like a food source. The beneficial bacteria and yeasts multiply when diluted and poured into the soil. This liquid brings both food and active microbes into the root zone. Instead of simply giving the plant one quick meal, it helps rebuild the tiny workforce that supports long-term growth. That is an important difference. A direct fertilizer is like handing the plant a plate of food. Fermented rice water is more like reopening the kitchen. Once the soil microbes become more active, they help break down organic matter, release nutrients, improve root surroundings, and create a healthier environment for the plant. The change may not always look dramatic overnight, but within a week or two. Weak plants often begin to show steadier growth, stronger color, and better resilience. The method is simple. After rinsing uncooked rice, save the cloudy water in a clean jar. Cover it loosely so gas can escape, but dust and insects stay out. Leave it at room temperature for about 3 to 5 days. The exact timing depends on temperature and warm weather. Fermentation can happen quickly. In cooler rooms, it may take longer. The signal is the smell. It should be lightly sour, not rotten. If it smells foul, moldy, or putrid, discard it and start again. Once the rice water has fermented, it should always be diluted before touching the soil. A safe starting ratio is 1 part fermented rice water to 10 parts clean water. This matters because fermentation can make the liquid more acidic, and using it straight may irritate tender roots, especially in seedlings or potted plants. Apply the diluted liquid around the base of the plant, not over the leaves. For general garden use, once a week is enough. For weak soil, it can be part of a recovery routine, but it should not replace balanced feeding entirely. Rice water is best understood as a soil life booster, not a complete fertilizer. This is where many people get disappointed. They use fresh rice water one time, pour it around a struggling plant, and expect the leaves to turn green by the next morning. When nothing dramatic happens, they assume the method does not work. But they skip the most important step: fermentation. Without fermentation, rice water is mostly a mild rinse water. With fermentation, it becomes a living soil treatment. It carries energy for microbes, supports beneficial activity, and helps the root zone become more alive. For plants that are collapsing from a specific nutrient shortage, rice water may not be enough by itself. A plant severely lacking nitrogen, potassium, or magnesium may need a more targeted treatment. But for soil that feels tired, compacted, overworked, or lifeless, fermented rice water is one of the easiest ways to bring activity back. It is not expensive. It is not complicated. It does not require special equipment. It begins with something most kitchens throw away every day. And sometimes, before a plant can grow stronger, the soil beneath it needs to wake up first. Before another onion skin is dropped into the trash, it is worth asking a simple question. Which part of the onion carries more hidden value for the garden? The white bulb that goes into the soup, or the dry, papery skin that most people throw away? For the kitchen, the bulb is the useful part. But for the soil, the skin may be the treasure. Those thin outer layers contain minerals that plants depend on, including potassium, calcium, magnesium, and small amounts of iron. They also contain natural plant compounds such as quercetin, which is known for its protective role in plants. In simple terms, onion peel tea is not just dirty water made from scraps. It is a mineral extract. And for certain struggling plants, especially fruiting crops like tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, and eggplants, potassium is one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. Potassium helps plants move water through their cells. It supports strong stems, better flowering, fruit development, and overall stress tolerance. When potassium runs low, plants may continue to survive, but they often stop performing. Flowers drop, fruit stays small, leaves may yellow or brown at the edges. Growth becomes weak, even when the plant is still alive. That is why onion peel tea can be useful. It offers a gentle way to return some of those minerals to the root zone without buying anything new. But the method matters. One common mistake is burying dry onion skins directly into the soil and expecting a fast rescue. There is nothing wrong with adding onion peels to compost or letting them break down slowly in the garden. And, over time, they will return nutrients to the soil. But a plant that is already wilting or yellowing may not have weeks to wait. Dry onion skins release nutrients slowly. Their fibers must soften, microbes must break them down, and the minerals must become available before roots can use them. By the time that happens, a weak plant may already be beyond recovery. Water changes the speed. Just like tea leaves release color and flavor into a cup, onion skins can release soluble minerals into water. The process is simple, but surprisingly effective. Place a handful of dry onion skins into a jar or bucket. Add clean water. Let it sit for 24 to 48 hours at room temperature. Over time, the water begins to darken. At first, it may look pale yellow. Then it becomes amber, like weak tea. That color is a sign that compounds from the onion skins have moved into the water. After steeping, strain out the skins and use the liquid around the base of the plant. Do not pour it over the leaves. The goal is to feed the soil near the roots, where absorption happens steadily and safely. For weak plants, onion peel tea can be used as a gentle root drench once every 1 to 2 weeks. It is not a complete fertilizer, and it should not be treated as the only thing a plant needs. But when a fruiting plant is short on minerals, especially potassium, this amber liquid may help support recovery. The changes may appear gradually. New leaves may come in with better color, stems may look less weak, flowering may improve. A plant that had paused its growth may begin to push forward again. There is also a protective side to onion skins. Natural compounds like quercetin are part of the way plants defend themselves against stress. They cannot replace proper watering, airflow, or disease management, but they may support the plant's ability to handle difficult conditions. This is important because many weak plants are not facing only one problem. They are often dealing with heat, inconsistent watering, low minerals, and tired soil all at once. A gentle mineral extract can become one useful part of the recovery plan. The biggest advantage is how accessible it is. There is no special product to buy, no complex formula, no expensive bottle with a label promising instant miracles. Just onion skins, water, and time. Still, balance matters. Using onion peel tea too often will not make the plant grow faster. Natural does not mean unlimited. The goal is to support the plant, not flood the soil with every homemade liquid at once. So the safest rule is simple. Use it diluted if it looks very dark. Apply it to the soil. Watch how the plant responds. Onion peel tea is best for gardeners who want to stop seeing kitchen scraps as garbage, because in the garden, those dry skins are not waste. They are a slow mineral bank. And with water, that bank can be opened in just a couple of days. Sometimes a weak plant is not missing just one nutrient. That is what makes plant recovery confusing. A tomato plant may need potassium for fruiting, calcium for stronger cell walls, magnesium for greener leaves, and a little nitrogen for new growth. A pepper plant may look tired not because one thing is missing, but because several small shortages are happening at the same time. This is why a single ingredient remedy does not always solve the problem. Onion peel tea may help with minerals. Fermented rice water may support soil microbes. Manure tea may give a broad nutrient boost. But when a plant is showing mixed signs of stress, a more complete kitchen tonic can be useful. This formula is built from 5 common ingredients: banana peels, eggshells, used coffee grounds, Epsom salt, and blackstrap molasses. Each one has a different role. Banana peels are best known for potassium. Potassium supports flowering, fruit development, water movement, and stress tolerance. When fruiting plants do not have enough potassium, they may produce weak flowers, small fruits, or fruits that ripen unevenly. The plant may still be alive, but it cannot finish its work properly. Eggshells provide calcium carbonate. Calcium helps build strong cell walls. In tomatoes, peppers, and squash, poor calcium movement inside the plant is often connected with blossom end rot, the dark sunken patch that appears at the bottom of the fruit. But there is an important detail here. Eggshells do not become plant available instantly. If large pieces of eggshell are tossed into the soil, they may sit there for months. The smaller they are crushed, the faster they can break down. For a liquid tonic, eggshells should be dried and ground as finely as possible. A powder works far better than bake. Shell fragments. Use coffee grounds add organic matter and a slow, gentle release of nitrogen. They can also improve soil texture over time when used in moderate amounts. There is a common myth that coffee grounds will strongly acidify garden soil. That is mostly true for fresh and brewed coffee, not for used grounds. After brewing, coffee grounds are usually much closer to neutral. Their bigger value is not making soil acidic. Their value is adding organic matter, feeding soil organisms, improving structure, and slowly contributing nitrogen. But moderation still matters. Too much coffee ground material can compact together, especially in pots, and make water movement worse. In a tonic, it should be used as one ingredient, not the entire recipe. The 4th ingredient is Epsom salt, also known as magnesium sulfate. Magnesium is important because it sits at the center of chlorophyll, the green pigment that allows leaves to capture sunlight. without enough magnesium. Leaves can begin to yellow between the veins while the veins stay greener. This pattern is often called intervenal chlorosis. When magnesium deficiency is truly the problem, a small amount of Epsom salt can help the plant recover color. But this is also where many gardeners make a mistake. Not every yellow leaf means the plant needs magnesium. Older leaves turning pale may point toward nitrogen deficiency. Young leaves yellowing first may suggest iron problems. A plant yellowing from the bottom up could be hungry. But it could also be overwatered. Roots sitting in soggy soil cannot absorb nutrients properly, even if the nutrients are present. So Epsom salt should be used carefully, not repeatedly poured onto every yellow plant. The fifth ingredient is the one that turns this mixture from a slow soak into an active brew. Blackstrap molasses. Blackstrap molasses contains trace minerals such as iron, but its most important role in this tonic is feeding microbes. A spoonful of molasses acts like a food source for beneficial bacteria. Once added to warm water with the other ingredients, it helps microbial activity increase. That activity helps break down the banana peels, eggshell powder, and coffee grounds faster than water alone. Without molasses, the mixture may sit for weeks and release nutrients slowly. With molasses, the brew can become useful in a few days. To make the tonic, place chopped banana peels, finely crushed eggshells, a small amount of used coffee grounds, 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt, and 1 tablespoon of blackstrap molasses into about 1 gallon of warm water. Cover the container loosely and let it steep for 3 to 5 days. The liquid should smell earthy, mildly sweet, or lightly fermented. It should not smell rotten. After steeping, strain the liquid, then dilute it before applying. A safe starting point is 1 part tonic to 10 parts clean water for general use. For very weak seedlings, use it even weaker. Pour it around the root zone, not over the leaves. This tonic is best used when a plant looks generally depleted, pale growth, weak stems, fewer flowers, poor fruit set, or slow recovery after stress, because it carries several different inputs. It can support more than one need at once. But it is not a cure for every problem. If a plant is dying from root rot, no fertilizer can fix that until the watering problem is corrected. If the soil is too compacted, roots may still struggle. If the plant has a severe disease, a nutrient tonic can support strength, but it cannot erase the disease. That is why observation comes first. Look at the leaves. Check the soil moisture. Notice whether the plant is in heat stress. Ask whether the problem started after overwatering, transplant shock, heavy fruiting, or a long period without feeding. Then use the tonic as support, not as a blind rescue. The best part of this formula is that it turns ordinary kitchen leftovers into a balanced recovery drink for the soil. Banana peel for potassium, eggshell for calcium, coffee grounds for organic matter and slow nitrogen, Epsom salt for magnesium, molasses for microbial energy. Together, they create a broad-spectrum liquid that can help a tired plant regain momentum. Not because it is magical, but because it gives the root zone several missing pieces at the same time. Every kitchen has a quiet pile of lost nutrients. A tomato that became too soft before anyone used it. A cucumber forgotten at the back of the fridge. A handful of spinach that wilted before dinner. A pepper with one bruised side. Most of these scraps go straight into the trash. Some may go into a compost bin, which is better, but compost takes time, depending on temperature, moisture, and material balance. It may take months before those scraps become something the garden can use. But when a plant is already fading, months may be too long. This is where vegetable scrap digestate becomes useful. It is a liquid fertilizer made by fermenting soft green kitchen scraps in water. The goal is to pull nutrients out of the plant tissue and make them available faster than a regular compost pile would. The main nutrient here is nitrogen. Nitrogen is the nutrient most closely connected with leafy growth, stem development, and the rich green color of healthy plants. When nitrogen is low, plants often look pale, thin, and tired. Older leaves may yellow first. Growth slows. New shoots become weak. A plant may still be alive, but it no longer has enough fuel to build itself. This connects to an old agricultural principle called the law of the minimum. A plant does not grow according to the nutrient it has the most of. It grows according to the nutrient it has the least of. Imagine a wooden barrel made from uneven boards. The barrel can only hold water up to the height of the shortest board. It does not matter how tall the other boards are. The shortest one sets the limit. Plant growth works in a similar way. The soil may contain enough potassium, calcium, and phosphorus, but if nitrogen is the missing piece, growth stops at that point. The plant cannot simply ignore the shortage and keep growing normally. Green vegetable scraps are useful because they usually have a lower carbon-to-nitrogen ratio than dry brown materials. In simple language, they contain more nitrogen compared with their fiber. Soft tomatoes, wilted lettuce, spinach, kale stems, cucumber ends, herb trimmings, and old leafy vegetables can all become a nitrogen-rich liquid if handled correctly. The method is simple, but it must be done with care. Chop or crush the vegetable scraps so water can reach the inside of the tissues. Place them into a bucket. Cover them completely with water. Use a plate, stone, or weight to keep the scraps submerged. Then cover the bucket loosely and let it ferment outside, or in a well-ventilated area for about 1 to 2 weeks. As the scraps break down, microbes begin pulling nutrients into the liquid. Nitrogen and other minerals are released from the plant cells and suspended in the water. The finished liquid will be dark, cloudy, and strong-smelling. That smell is normal. But it is also the reason this method should be handled responsibly. Keep it away from living spaces. Do not leave it open where insects can breed. Do not use meat, dairy, oil, cooked salty food, or diseased plant material. This method is for soft vegetable scraps only. After fermentation, strain the liquid. Then dilute it heavily. This is the step that protects the plant. A good starting ratio is 1 part vegetable scrap liquid to 30 parts clean water. That may sound weak, but this liquid can be powerful. Used too strong, it may burn root hairs or create stress in already weak plants. Apply it only to the soil or on the base of the plant. Never spray it on the leaves. This is not a foliar mist. It is not something to pour over lettuce, herbs, or any edible surface. It belongs in the root zone, where soil can buffer it and roots can take up nutrients gradually. When used correctly, vegetable scrap digestate can help plants that are clearly hungry for nitrogen. Pale leaves may deepen in color. Weak new growth may become stronger. A plant that had stopped pushing new shoots may begin growing again within several days. But there is a limit. Nitrogen can revive growth, but too much nitrogen can also create problems. A tomato plant that receives too much nitrogen may produce many leaves but fewer fruits. Soft, fast growth can also attract pests, so this liquid should be used as a rescue or occasional feeding, not as something poured every day. Once every 2 to 3 weeks is usually enough for hungry fruiting plants. For leafy greens, use even more caution, especially close to harvest. There is also an important safety note. If the liquid smells rotten in a harsh, sewage-like way, if it grows strange mold, or if it attracts too many flies, discard it far away from food crops and start again with cleaner scraps and better covering. Good homemade fertilizer should support the garden, not create a sanitation problem. The power of this method is not that it is pretty. It is not. It is dark, strong, and messy. Its power is that it captures nutrients before they are wasted. The average kitchen throws away more plant nutrition than many small gardens need. When those scraps are redirected carefully, they become a resource instead of landfill waste. Vegetable scrap digestate is best for one specific situation. A plant looks pale, weak, and underfed, and the problem appears to be a shortage of nitrogen rather than disease or root damage. In that case, this liquid can act quickly. Not because it forces the plant to grow, but because it returns one of the missing boards in the barrel. And once that shortest board is raised, the whole plant has room to rise again. Natural fertilizer can be powerful, but natural does not always mean harmless. This is where many gardeners make their biggest mistake. They hear that onion skins, rice water, vegetable scraps, coffee grounds, or manure can help plants recover. Then they assume that if a little is good, more must be better. But plants do not recover from force. They recover from balance. The first mistake is using homemade liquid fertilizer too strong. Fermented liquids are concentrated. Manure tea, vegetable scrap digestate, and kitchen tonics can all contain active minerals, salts, acids, and microbes if they are poured directly onto stressed roots. They may burn the very root hairs the plant needs for recovery. A weak plant should be treated gently. Dilution is not optional. It is the safety step that turns a strong extract into a usable tonic. The second mistake is spraying these liquids on the leaves. Some homemade fertilizers are strong-smelling, acidic, or microbially active. They belong in the soil, not on the leaf surface. Leaves can scorch. Edible crops can become unsafe or unpleasant to harvest, and in humid weather, wet leaves can invite fungal problems. For most rescue feeding, the safest place is the root zone. The third mistake is using the wrong treatment for the wrong problem. A yellow leaf does not always mean the plant needs more fertilizer. It may be overwatered. It may have root rot. It may be suffering from heat stress. It may be in compacted soil where the roots cannot breathe. It may be attacked by pests or disease. If the roots are damaged, adding more nutrients will not solve the real issue. Before feeding, check the basics. Is the soil too wet? Is it bone dry? Are the leaves curled from heat? Are there insects under the leaves? Is the plant in a pot that has become too small? Fertilizer helps only when hunger is part of the problem. The fourth mistake is using fresh manure. Fresh manure can contain too much ammonia, wheat seeds, and harmful pathogens. It can burn plants quickly, especially seedlings and vegetables. Manure tea should be made only from aged or composted manure, and even then, it must be diluted before use. The fifth mistake is applying too often. A struggling plant needs time to respond. Pouring a different homemade fertilizer every day can confuse the soil, overload the root zone, and create new problems. In many cases, one careful feeding per week, or even less, is enough. Watch the plant before adding more. New green growth, stronger stems, and better leaf color are signs that the treatment is working. Burnt tips, wilting after feeding, sour soil smell, or sudden leaf drop are signs to stop and flush the soil with clean water. The goal is not to drown the plant in nutrients. The goal is to give it the missing piece, then let the soil and roots do their work. Natural liquid fertilizers are best used like medicine. The right one, at the right strength, at the right time. That is when they can help a fading plant come back. Part 8 Conclusion. The cure may already be in the kitchen. A fading plant is not always a lost plant. Sometimes it is only missing the right support at the right moment. That support does not always need to come from a store shelf. It can come from the simple things that pass through a kitchen every day. Onion skins that hold useful minerals. Rice water that can wake up soil life. Soft vegetable scraps that still carry nitrogen. Banana peels, eggshells, coffee grounds, Epsom salt, and molasses that can become a broader recovery tonic. Aged manure that can be turned into an old-fashioned root feed when handled safely. Each of these 5 liquids works in a different way. Onion peel tea helps return minerals, especially for fruiting plants that need stronger flowering and better stress support. Fermented rice water does not feed the plant directly as much as it feeds the living world around the roots. Vegetable scrap digestate can help when a plant looks pale, weak, and hungry for nitrogen. The full-spectrum kitchen tonic gives several small nutrients at once, which can help when the signs of stress are mixed. And aged manure tea brings back one of the oldest ideas in gardening: feed the soil, and the soil will help feed the plant. But the real lesson is not just about 5 recipes. The real lesson is attention. A plant tells its story through its leaves, stems, flowers, roots, and soil. Yellowing leaves, dropped blossoms, weak growth, and tired stems are not random. They are signals. The better those signals are understood, the easier it becomes to choose the right support instead of guessing. And guessing is where many plants are lost. Too much fertilizer can damage roots. Fresh manure can burn. Strong fermented liquids can overwhelm seedlings. The wrong treatment can waste time while the real problem gets worse. So the best approach is simple. Observe first, dilute carefully. Feed the soil, not the leaves. Use aged materials, not fresh manure. Give the plant time to respond before adding more. When used with care, these old methods can turn waste into recovery. They can reduce the need for store-bought fertilizers. They can keep nutrients out of the trash and return them to the place where they belong, back into the soil. So the next time a tomato plant begins to yellow, a pepper stops flowering, or a cucumber vine starts to fade, pause before pulling it out. The plant may not be finished. It may only be asking for something the kitchen has already provided. If you found this helpful, share which natural fertilizer you would try first in the comments. And if you want more simple, practical ways to understand how nature works beneath the surface, subscribe to Nature's Blueprint. Because every healthy garden begins with a better blueprint.